I met her at the Lit Fest. And when I met her, I thought, ऊपर वाला किसी को इतना talented कैसे बना सकता है? She's an educationist, she's a thinker, she's a writer, she's a vlogger. And when you meet her, she is a true fauji wife who's proud, and at the same time, she wants to pass on all her wisdom to the next generation. She is a best-selling author. Hi, I'm Arthi Karthik. Welcome to today's episode of How's the Josh. I have with me a very well-known author. You must have read her work. She is Mrs. Sutapa Basu. Hi, Mrs. Basu. Welcome.
Hello, and lovely to meet you again, Arthi.
Same here, Mrs. Basu. So, talking about Fauji connection, being a daughter and a wife, how has the journey been?
It's been a wonderful journey. And you just said that I am also a daughter, yes. And that, experience. In fact, I have not known anything but army life ever since I've been born until my husband retired and we came here. That is 2001. Till then, I only knew army life. So, and it's been a wonderful life, the travel, meeting new people, new experiences. It's been great.
And how have you been in touch with your passion as an author, as a writer, in spite of, moving so much with your husband? It's quite difficult.
In fact, I think because I was moving with my husband, those different experiences that I had, they, made me grow as a writer, as an author. I've always been a voracious reader ever since I've been a child. So I always wanted to write books, the way my favorite authors wrote.
Okay.
So that has been my dream.
Okay.
And I used to keep writing, but I never wrote anything to, with the intention of publishing it until 2014. When, after having raised a family and had a corporate career, I told myself that if I'm going to make that dream come true,
this is the time.
This is the time, and I have to, totally focus on that. So I actually left my corporate job and I decided to start writing. But there was this phenomenal fear that firstly, how do I write a book? Writing short stories and writing poems are great. But a book, 60,000 words, it was like, a huge thing for me. The second thing was who would publish it? I knew nobody, as a publisher who would publish my book. And finally, even if it got published, would somebody actually pick it up and read it? Will it be worth reading? And then came along a wonderful contest, which was Write India.
Acha.
By Times of India.
Okay.
So just like everybody else, in the country, I also wrote for Write India. And they would have this prompt. Every month, an established author would give a prompt.
Okay.
And you had to base your story on that.
Okay.
And submit it. So the first month, it was Amish Tripathi's prompt. So I based, I took the prompt, based my story on it, and I sent it off. And he had lots of other parameters, like it has to be historical story, it has to be set in a place called Paithan, and it had to talk about the Vedic authors like Gargi, and so on. So I obviously had to do a lot of research and find out everything about the place, and then I wrote the story and sent it off. And after a month, when it was announced that I'm the first prize winner, I couldn't believe it. Absolutely. In fact, I told them, there must be some other Sutapa, not me.
Okay.
But then they sent me they mailed me and they told me that I am the first prize winner. And not only that, Amish Tripathi, he read the story and he said that it brought tears to his eyes.
Wow.
So that really put me, I was elated, and all my confidence. At that time, I really needed that boost. It came back. And I wrote my first novel, which was a psychological thriller, which is this one called Tangle.
Okay.
And this one, it was nominated for the best debut work by Anupam Kher book debut award.
Wow.
So that was one, and then I went on to write my historical fiction.
So how did you start with psychological thriller?
See, right at the beginning, when I used to read, my favorite
genres
were thrillers or else historical novels.
Acha.
So both of them have been my favorite genres. So I thought, let me start with something I know.
Okay.
What I have read. So that is how I wrote this one, which is, and not only was it a psychological thriller, this book, a lot of it has been set in Manipur.
Acha.
So a lot of this is autobiographical.
Uh-huh.
Because my husband was posted there during the height of insurgency.
Okay.
So I have showcased Manipur. What happens, when ordinary people are have to live under the shadow of the gun, whether it's by the insurgents or by the armed forces, both. So what happens to them then?
Okay.
So this book has got a lot of that,
Acha.
as well as the beauty of Manipur. I mean, I only had heard about blue lotuses. I didn't know that they actually existed.
Okay.
So I saw them there in Manipur.
Uh-huh.
Blue lotuses filling like kilometers of blue lotuses. It was beautiful. So it's such a beautiful place, but because of the insurgency, it cannot be a tourist destination. And that's what is a sad thing about it. So that way this book is very close to my heart. Of course, it's my first book.
Of course, it's your first, yeah.
That's why.
So how much time did it take for you to finish your first novel?
I think it took about 6 months.
Okay.
And thankfully I found a publisher, Readomania. So they decided to publish this book.
So all your books are being published by them, right?
Yes, till now, yes. All my books have been published by Readomania.
So how's it when you go for book reading sessions, the kind of crowd that you get? Do you get young crowd who are reading your work?
Both young as well as older people and children. I mean, my historical novels have been picked up by children to read, and they have been kept in school libraries.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So Padmavati, then the Legend of Genghis Khan and the Curse of Nadir Shah, all of them have been are read by entire range. I mean, all ages read it and enjoy it.
And The Birth of My Nation is your recent book.
It's a recent book.
So what is it based? It is aimed at young people, right?
Yes,
young readers.
Yes, it is for young readers, and it is basically about the integration of India.
Okay.
So even people like us who've been born in free India, we thought that when the British, handed over the India to the new government, they gave the India which we know today, which starts from Ladakh to Kanyakumari and Kutch to Arunachal Pradesh. But it was not so. In fact, they only gave us what they had in control, which was British India, which was just 60% of the land as we know it today.
Achha.
And 40% of it were more than 500 princely states. And those princely states, they became independent the moment the British left. So they had a choice. They could join India, they could join Pakistan, or they could remain independent. So what was the vision that our leaders at that time, specifically Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and the Secretary of the Home Ministry, V.P. Menon, what was the vision that they had for India? And how did they go about building that India? How did they go to each of these rulers and convince them? They never compelled. They convinced them that their state should join India so that it would benefit them and their people. So how did it happen? And on the other side, the rulers, why did they sacrifice their inheritance that had been there in their family for ages? What was it that made them bring about that sacrifice? Was it patriotism? Was it something else? So that is what this book is about.
Okay.
And also, every chapter showcases each of our 28 states and our 8 union territories. So it starts from the prehistory of that region, goes to the history, and then how was that state born? And then some of the states have broken up into other states. So how did that happen?
Okay.
So the entire story is there in every
Basically,
chapter.
it's history, but in the form of a story, which makes it more enjoyable for a child to read.
Yes, and it's in form of a conversation.
Acha.
So there's this lady who's telling the stories to a group of children.
Acha.
And they're asking questions because, all kinds of questions would arise in
a
children's
child's mind. Yes.
Something like, why do you have AD and BC after dates?
Okay.
So she explains why do we put that, and I mean, how does it help us to understand history better? So that is how this whole thing. So it's like a chatty conversation between children and a storyteller, and each state, there's a story behind it. So it's culture, it's cuisine, everything comes through that story.
So talking about children, did any of your kid pick up the flair for writing from you?
Well, my daughter, she writes. And my son, he used to write, but then, everybody gets into the corporate sort of treadmill, and then they can't get off. But what my son does is he's a wildlife photographer.
Oh,
So
wow.
he is always going for these trips to the sanctuaries and to the reserve forests, both in India as well as abroad. And he keeps clicking. And there's the calendar there, in fact, which he has, on tigers, on
Acha.
cats basically,
Okay.
tigers and leopards and lions.
Uh-huh.
So he then he creates these calendars.
Oh, lovely.
So that is so. I mean,
Basically, he
somewhere-
has some creative passion that
Absolutely.
has come from you to him.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what do you think of today's readers, Mrs. Basu? Is it that, like, when I go to bookstores, it's not that bookstores, there is nobody over there. There are a lot of kids who are enthusiastic, they want to read. Have you seen a shift in the reader's mind over a period of time as a reader and now as an author yourself?
So what I see is that, okay, children are picking up books to read, but often they are picking up books by the Western authors rather than Indian authors, which is a very sad story, because the authors from India who are writing for children are writing for Indian children, and they are writing about things which are familiar to them, which they can see around themselves, but unfortunately somehow the young generation looks towards the West for inspiration, when there is so much inspiration right here. And that is one more reason why I have written The Birth of My Nation, and there is another book I've written which is called The Cursed Inheritance, which is set in Kolkata, so a lot of Kolkata's heritage is there in it.
Okay.
Basically what I feel is that if the young generation don't know their roots, if they do not know what it is to be an Indian, when they go out into the world, they will find it a little difficult to anchor themselves, because it's wonderful to be a part of the global world and be a global citizen, have a global career, but then they should know who they are, their own identity. And that is something which I feel that with these books I have tried to bring India alive for them.
So basically, you try and you choose a state, and then you center your story around that particular place, and then you research about it, and then you bring out something
Yes.
which is most important part of that state.
Absolute. That's what I've done for
So
The
do you
Birth of My
do you
Nation.
travel to those places where what you're writing about?
Oh yes, I do. I my research is not limited just to books and documentaries and films.
Okay.
Because I have to do a lot of research. Research, especially for a book like The Birth of My Nation, I had to be very careful that I am doing. I'm putting in verified facts from verified resources, and this book is very carefully written so that there is no viewpoint or opinion of the author in it. It is just the facts which are presented to the reader, and it's up to the reader to come to their own conclusion about them, to analyze them. And I think that is what our new education policy says, that let our young people think for themselves. So that is also something there that is
You've
there in
written
this book.
something right now, keeping that in mind for English as a subject, is it?
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
have actually a new ELT series, English language series, called The English Tree, has been launched also this year.
Okay.
And it is being prescribed in schools all over India.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
So how different it is than the existing English books that the kids have in the school?
So the National Education Policy 2020, it says that we today have to inculcate skills and concepts and not information. So rote learning is something that they want to really wean the children away from. And so this series has been created in such a way, it's completely child-centric, and it is activity based. So the children learn through activities, whether they are learning in class 1 or they're learning in class 8.
Okay.
And there is a lot of research that they can do.
So activities still, even in class 8, it's activity based.
Absolutely. So they have to do these PowerPoint presentations to their class, or they have to have a group discussion, and they need to research for that. They need to analyze, and then only they can do the
Practical orientation is more,
Absolutely.
and not just
Absolutely.
reading and memorizing.
Right. And at the
Okay.
same time, the education policy also has brought out a new way of evaluating whether the children have actually, been able to get these skills or not for the teacher. So these activities are framed in such a way that the teacher can easily evaluate.
Okay. So are you training the teachers as well in terms of your book?
I am.
How? Okay.
I am. So I have just completed about 2 to 3 teacher conferences with this book, one in Kolkata, one in Patna.
Okay.
So, and we are planning some more in the south.
Okay.
So that I can talk to teachers, show them how these activities are done, simulate them for them, and so that they get comfortable using this book.
So you also take training sessions in terms of if I want to become an author, a thought process that I should have or I should follow, and then what is the procedure? Because in LitFest, I remember that you had told all of us who were attending your workshop that this is the way to go about it. When you started writing, did you also have somebody to tell you that who initiated you into writing and this is the way it should be done? Sutapa, was there somebody?
Not really. In fact, I consulted a lot of books before I started writing on the techniques of writing.
Okay.
And then I tried to emulate them.
Achha.
So that is also one of the reasons why I have started this. I have a creative writing course which I run online. We've just finished 2 batches of it, in fact.
Achha.
And that is what I tell the aspiring writers, that everything has a technique to it. Of course, creativity is something that is God given. Yeah. But you can always, at least you know what you should base your writing on. So if you know the basic techniques, then you can play around with them. That is what I tell them.
Okay.
So that is exactly what my course is all about. So we have a lot of group discussions, a lot of assignments that they do. How do you create characters? How do you create a setting? What does a setting require? How do you show a time period?
Okay.
Without actually probably giving the date, you can still show a time period in a particular city. So how do you do that? How do you, how characters can be picked up from life itself, the people whom you meet.
Yeah.
How can you create characters out of them? And then a story, where do you get the story idea? So I sometimes tell them that, you can look at birds and you will still get a story idea. I mean, ideas should just come from everywhere, and they're all around you. You just need to pick them. That's all.
You have to be observant enough to know and
and you should have, I think you should have the empathy and open your mind, and they will pop in.
No, you make it sound very easy because you are an author. But I think for a person like me, if you tell me to sit and write something, Arthi, I would be like, अच्छा मुझे लिखना है ऐसे करके. So Ms. Basu, being an author is a journey. Being married to an army officer is again a journey. Life is full of stories and journeys. This journey started knowing that you are getting married to an army officer. Was it a love marriage or was it an arranged one for you?
It was a love marriage.
Okay. And where did you meet your husband?
So we met in Vadodara. My father was posted there as heading the armaments wing of the the EME school that is there.
Okay.
And my husband was posted there. He's also an EME officer.
Acha.
So we met there, and
you had a connection and you connected.
And things just happened. My husband's very fond of theatre.
Okay.
And my father was putting up a play. So he was a part of that play, and we used to keep going to the rehearsals, and that's how we met.
So basically, creativity, even he had some kind of it in terms of, in spite of being an army officer.
Very much. He plays the tabla.
Oh, how wonderful.
So yes, the creativity runs in the family.
So is there something that you want to tell him after so many years of being together, being the happy woman that you are? I'm sure a lot of credit goes to your husband who makes you and keeps you happy.
And kept me very strong. So I would say this to my husband, that thank you for the liberties that you've given me and allowing me the freedom to express myself, always. That is what has made me strong that I am, because I got married when I was just about 20 years old.
So basically, it's been a journey of self-discovery with your husband.
Absolutely, it has, certainly.
You've grown up
with him.
How cute is that? What about the army officers' wives today that you see, and when you got married and when you came in? So you see there's this shift of focus, there's a shift of thought. How do you perceive if it is there?
Very much. And I'm so happy to see the army officers' wives today, because when we got married, either we be a housewife, or if he wanted to work, it had to be in a school, because that was the only career open to us. But today, no doubt, thanks to the internet, the army officers' wives have, they are doing so many different kinds of things, and I love to see them that way. And it gives them a kind of confidence and gives them an identity which goes beyond what their husbands are. Because I often used to see, and since I am an army brat as well, so I have also seen growing up my mother's generation, the ladies of my mother's generation, they would identify themselves completely with their husbands' careers. But as I got married, I found a lot of people, a lot of women of my generation who wanted to do things on their own. So they would start small businesses, or of course they could always work in a school, or try to do something else. But it was very restrictive because we were traveling with our husbands, and we stayed in a station for just 2.5 years. And I often used to grumble that the moment I have made my place in the school, I have to move out. So that was happening. But today I see, and when I became a senior officer's wife, I could see the junior officers who were, internet had already come in. So in fact, I remember that in my husband's battalion, there was a lady who came in the evening and she taught the Jawans about computer, how to use a computer. That was a wonderful thing, and she felt so good about it. And I think the officers also felt very good that one of our lady wives is actually going out and teaching the Jawans. So it was not really what should I say, a ladies club thing. So she was actually doing something very constructive, and we all felt very, very good about it. And no doubt when because of my children's education, I had to stay in Delhi. I started looking around, and then I joined the publishing industry. So I worked with Oxford University Press first, then with Encyclopedia Britannica, and then with UFS Learning. So I had nearly 25 years of publishing career.
Wow.
In all these companies.
That's a long and a big number.
Yes, and I'm very happy for that. Because it helped me grow.
Obviously.
And that's what I've been always wanting to do. And that is why I said that my husband has always been very liberal in this respect, that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And even with writing, when I decided to just drop my corporate career and start writing, there were a lot of people who told me you're making a mistake. But I'm so happy I did that.
Because I think the 25 years that you spent in publishing, as well as being a reader since you were a child, I think it gave you immense confidence that एक बार तो कोशिश करनी चाहिए.
Exactly. If I try to give wings to my dream. So I'm so happy that I could fly. Of course, there's a lot to do as yet, and I'm looking forward to.
What is it that you're coming out with in the next few months?
So there are a lot of projects which are work under progress, but basically what I'm now trying to do is to work in different other genres. So I have written thrillers, I have written historical novels, I have come out with 2 anthologies during the pandemic years because no publishing was happening, but these were published on Kindle. And then I decided to translate a very old, 100 years old actually, heritage children's fiction.
Okay.
So this is a Bangla book which is called Thakumar Jhuli. And it has been translated into a book called Princesses, Monsters and Magical Creatures. I think the book is here.
Achha.
So this is the book.
Wow.
So this is a translation. So this is again, I tried my hand out at translating, and it was not easy at all. I mean, I'm a Bengali and I thought that it will be cakewalk, but it wasn't. Because the original book has been published 100 years ago.
So the language must be that.
The language is absolutely so different, and there were sometimes certain words that I would really stumble on, and I would go around asking a lot of people, and
वो अब नहीं use होते होंगे वो words,
yes, they're not used anymore. So then I had to decide how will I translate that. So this was a very good experience, because every genre has its own parameters, and you have to work within them. And when you start working within them, then you hone your own craft. So I believe that I would become a better writer if I have to live within work within certain parameters, and that is why I want to try out different genres.
So as a writer, do you also take out time to read every day?
Oh yes, they have to go hand in hand, I think. And I have to read because when I read, what happens is that I'm reading and then there'll be a phrase which will come and I will think, oh wow, I mean I should have used this one when I was writing that.
Okay.
So you learn as you read. You learn different styles, you learn different voices, and then you find your own voice through that.
How wonderful. That's a beautiful thought. So you believe that anyone can try and be an author, or at least they should try it once to know if they can or not?
I believe you should try once, and if it's your aspiration, go ahead.
Because I know and I see a lot of kids now today. In fact, my son also, he says that he loves animals, so he keeps jotting down the details of all kinds of animals, and then he writes about animals and he draws animals जिसके उसको cutout या pictures नहीं मिलते वो उनको draw करता है. And so he wants to publish a book of his own.
Okay.
So he keeps telling me that mama abhi ho gaya now, I think I should publish my book ऐसे करके. So I look at him and say, that's so nice. So he keeps making his table of contents, glossary, pata nahi kya kya, he keeps making it.
Lovely.
So that's a nice thing when I see a 13-year-old trying his hand at something, and on his own. So there are other kids also that I have seen. And
I'm sure. So I believe today, I mean, it's so beautiful that the world has opened up so much that today the children, if they dream of something, then they can also reach out to it. And I think parents have also, opened their minds to different kinds of vocations, different kinds of careers. And so, they have given their children the freedom of searching, discovering themselves and what they want to do.
True. So true. On that note, Ms. Basu, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All the best for all your future writings and your trainings. Everything that you want to do, everything should fall in place for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, Arthi.
So that was lovely Mrs. Basu, who taught me probably today that in spite of writing so many books, she still takes out time and she reads new authors, because that's where the inspiration comes from. So keep yourself inspired, and thank you so much for taking out time and being a part of today's show. I'm Arthi Karthik. Keep the juice high.